Hi, I'm David Penn, research analyst with the Finovate Group, and joining me today is Nick Sando, who leads the credit and lending investments at Octopus Ventures. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
No problem, David.
Hey, great. First, for those of you who might not be aware of you or know much about Octopus Ventures, could you give us a little bit about what Octopus Ventures is and the work you do there for them?
Of course. So Octopus Ventures is one of the largest VCs in Europe. We invest primarily in seed and Series A investments, so I think 2 to 5 million. We invest across 3 primary verticals, which is future of health, so that's health and wellness investments, deep tech, which is any sort of industry 4.0, so think drones, all that fun stuff. And then the team that I sit in, which is the Fintech team, and that's insurance, payments, blockchain, credit and lending, you name it. We're pretty agnostic across that space.
Okay, interesting. Now, yesterday you participated in our Fintech and Investor All-Stars panel, one of our favorite panels here at a lot of Finovate shows. Question is always, where the smart money is investing worldwide. Can you tell us a little bit about what you emphasized in that conversation, and maybe we'll talk about some of the other insights you might have heard, the thoughts you found interesting.
Yeah, it was a really good panel. I think what was covered is there was always the theme about if there's a correction coming, which a lot of people think there is. The smart money is probably the money that's still there at the end of it, right?
There you go.
And I think the points we discussed were that obviously investors might have to sort of put more emphasis again onto like unit economics and fundamentals of businesses, but also look at businesses which are trading on multiples that if they went public, they would be receiving the same multiples. Because the fintech, some of them are getting too large now to get acquired. So the public is the route to go down. So it's sort of understanding how that looks.
Right. It's very interesting. I know there's always sort of this push-pull, a lot of talk about is the IPO dead for fintechs? Is that a route not to pursue because of so much presence with the VCs? So it's interesting to hear from you rather, that maybe that shift has been overdone and that maybe the IPO route is more reasonable for some of these companies.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see for like some of the challenger banks, like who is going to acquire them because they're so big now. So I think you heard that Starling, for example, was preparing to go public this year,
I did hear that.
which will maybe catalyze a few others. So yeah, I think the IPO route should be back on.
Yeah, very interesting. One of the things that I found is maybe one of the underrated aspects of venture capital and the relationship that they have with startups is beyond the money is the mentoring, the guidance, they're really helping them develop. And it's one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about, especially as so much money seems to be there for these companies. That sort of other half of it and the role that you guys play in terms of helping these companies become better businesses. I wonder if you could talk about a little bit of that.
I mean, that's a really good point. And I think something that having such a large fund gives us the benefit of being able to invest into certain roles across the board. The most commonly helpful role that we can provide outside of money is generally hiring. So we have various people, we have a whole hiring function, Octopus, and that's not for our internal hiring, that's to help our portfolio companies hire.
Oh, interesting.
And as you can imagine with fintech, these companies are global companies with big ambitions.
Right.
So traveling, for example, from Europe to the States is on nearly all of these companies' roadmaps. And therefore we have set up an office, for example, in the States, which is purely just to help those companies make those transitions.
Oh, interesting.
So I think given that there's so many fintech investors in the market, right, as a fintech founder, I would ask myself, I should really be getting a little bit more than cash nowadays because they deserve it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. One of the things I found interesting, I was reading a little bit about the Octopus Ventures, and I found out that you were looking to add to your team, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And one of the things, I don't know if you mind discussing it a little bit, but people are always interested in, well, what does it take to be part of a VC team? What kind of people do you look for? Are there people that you used to look for that you feel you got plenty of, and now you need a different sort of person? Just who makes a good member of a VC team? What do you guys look for?
Yeah, it's like a question that's quite hard to answer because a VC team should be made up of very different thinkers, right? So if you have a VC team with all the same way of thinking, you might as well just have one of those people, right? So I think when you look at a team, what a team needs, therefore, is what they lack in sort of, and so we generally lean on people who are intensely curious, have a different opinion than ours, see the world differently. Maybe they grew up somewhere else. Maybe they were a founder themselves. I think over half our team is, but just a story which isn't, more of the same. And I think that's what makes really great investment teams as a whole, when people can argue and talk and debate different, ways of thinking.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask you this, maybe by way of wrapping up. Is this your first Finovate? Have you been to many Finovates before?
This is my first Finovate, yeah.
Oh, really? Good.
I've broken the maiden.
Excellent. Well, let me just ask you, in terms of just your general observations, general thoughts about it, how's the experience been?
it's so awesome as an investor, having so many founders demoing, right? It's like you could just sit in that room and listen for hours to different businesses. So
Sure.
I think it's it doesn't feel at all like a trade show, It feels like a proper conference where everyone's talking about the next thing. And some of the conferences I go to do feel a bit salesy.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
this is a great refreshing. I'll definitely be back next year.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. Well, we're great to have you this time, and we're definitely going to be looking forward to having you back next year.
Thank you, David.
All right, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for joining us as well.
Thank you.